What is up, loyal Mart shoppers, and welcome to another episode brought to you by Backyard Zombie. And I have been wanting to do a video like this for the channel for a very long time. But if you are just tuning in just for the build portion of the video, you can skip to right about here, and that's where the build starts. But if you want to sit here and listen to me nerd out and talk about awesome creators that I love, stick around as we go through this video. So, let's get to it. Dead chainsaw hand first appeared in Evil Dead 2 in 1987, directed by Sam Raimi and starring Bruce Campbell. The chainsaw, from what my research has shown, was actually created by Ellis Sonny Burnham and his team, and it was made from a Homelite XL chainsaw. Now, throughout the movie, there are different chainsaws. I forget exactly how many chainsaws were made. During my research, I found it was like 5 or 6, but some had flat tops, some had what this is called is a or a hard top, or it's a raised top, and it went through different looks and views, and then some of those appeared in Army of Darkness, which also went through a lot of changes, and then the chainsaw continues on in ashvsevildead, and it went through several changes, and then when Ruby crushed it in this clip, you know, everyone was really sad. But the chainsaw hand has appeared in a lot of media, whether it be the Evil Dead games and having different versions, or the musical, which the first cast, it was a yellow chainsaw because they didn't have like a Homelite yet. And then my favorite appearance of the chainsaw is actually in the season 3 episode of Creep Show, the episode Skeletons in the Closet. You can actually see Evil Dead chainsaw hand in one of the cases, and I think that's really cool. So this prop has appeared in a lot of different media across movies and television, and it's just such a cool freaking prop. Like, when you hold one of these bad boys, you just feel awesome. This in particular saw I've had for several years, but actually a couple years ago I made a video rehauling this saw, and it's basically stayed that way since that video, and I'm so excited to start this video for you guys to show you how I built another saw, and I think that saw is going to come out really cool.
Joshua, what if someone is just starting out, but they want to make a chainsaw, but all they have access to is, you know, household items?
That is a great question, Igor. There are several build videos all over YouTube where creators and builders use household items to make a chainsaw hand. One of my favorite videos of all time, when I was getting really big into Evil Dead and wanting to build my own chainsaw, was a build by one of my favorite prop makers, Eric Beck. Now, Eric Beck made a DIY household chainsaw for his channel, The Indie Mogul, and actually years later he revisited the project, and his skills got better, his skills got more awesome, and he built another chainsaw hand, and you can actually watch both of those videos here on YouTube, link in the description.
Well, I'm looking for screen accuracy, so I want to make all the nerds drool and all the ladies swoon, if you feel me.
Well, Igor, I know a fellow knight of Sumeria who can meet all of those qualifications. Brett of Brett's Groovy Chainsaws is one of the best chainsaw makers of all time on YouTube. His chainsaws are so insanely accurate that if you were to put one of his chainsaws next to a screen use prop and you didn't know which was which, I feel like you'd have a very hard time telling them apart, or which is the prop replica and which is the actual screen use prop. Brett is a very good friend of the channel here at Backyard Zombie, and his chainsaws are they're legendary. They're amazing. He has ashvsevildead chainsaws, he has Army of Darkness chainsaws, and his apocalyptic chainsaw, which is a very beautiful piece of art, is one of the coolest things I've ever seen. His links will be down below. Check out all of his YouTube videos because he offers high-end specific videos for parts of the chainsaw, how to make your chainsaw look more accurate, how to do the cuts, how to do the painting. He offers tons of videos breaking down one of the greatest props in movie history. Brett is just so freaking cool, and actually, I think I'm going to give him a call right now to see if he can give us some insights on building Evil Dead chainsaws. So let's give him a call. I totally forgot I don't have his phone number. So I'm going to summon him with the power of the Necronomicon. Necronomicon ex Mortis, show me Brett's groovy chainsaws. Clatu Verata Nicto.
Hello, Sir Josh. What can I do for you?
Good morrow, Sir Brett. I was wondering if I can have a moment of your time. As Lord Chainsaw Builder of YouTube, your skills only rivaled by the hero who fell from the sky. I was wondering, can you share some insights and maybe some advice for my viewers here on YouTube about building Evil Dead chainsaws?
Just have fun. Whether you enjoyed watching the movies Evil Dead 1 through Evil Dead Rise, or creating the weapons and props such as the Necronomicon, the Kandarian dagger, or the sacred weapon of the hero from the sky, the chainsaw hand.
That's great advice, Brett. Is there anything else you'd like to tell my viewers?
Stay groovy.
You heard it from the legend himself, folks. Thanks, Brett. Lastly, I'm going to be moving forward with custom-made parts by Nick Valenza, aka Nick Salmart. He's a big collaborator here at Backyard Zombie. We've done several videos with him. All of his links are going to be down below. And he actually offers painted and unpainted kits for his chainsaw parts and actually full casted chainsaws. Nick's art, especially his Evil Dead stuff, is so cool, and we love working with Nick here on the channel.
Sounds like a lot of yappening and not a lot of happening. Get to building, Joshua!
Well, Igor, first I gotta go shopping. And I shop smart. I shop S-Mart. Let's get this tutorial started. Okay, so here's the Homelight XL chainsaw, and we have to take all these screws off, and they are a flathead screw, so we're going to take our flathead screwdriver and go to each of these, and I always keep a pair of gloves handy because this is going to get messy. And then I'm going to have this box here, and I'm going to use that to hold the engine and all the oil and gas tanks when I pull that out. So we start to unscrew, and I totally forgot to put my gloves on because I realized this thing is very messy and grimy. So we're going to switch screwdrivers, and we're just going to remove all the screws that we see on the surface, and we're going to make sure we keep those, at a distance so we have them ready to go. So we're going to continue removing all of the screws one by one. And eventually we'll be able to take out the final screw in the handle, and this will help us remove that black handle, and it'll help us remove the faceplate of the saw, which is a very important part. This is one of my favorite little moments where we can finally get this part off. And there it is. This is the star of the show, really. This is the area we'll be doing most of our detail work. So now we have to figure out how to get all of these bolts off of the saw. So I'm going to use this wrench, which I believe is an 8mm. Really depends on the body of the saw that you have, but I'm going to use this wrench, and I'm going to take out all these bolts from the top and the bottom of the saw. So one by one, we'll take them off and remove them. So once I had all that removed, I started removing the gas and the oil tanks, and that's going to help me, clear out the saw even more. But I'm running into a snag here because the engine just won't come out. And eventually I figure out it's this spark plug, and I'm like, I don't have a deep ratchet set for that. So I'm going to remove the switch on the top first, and I just use my needle nose to get that part off of the saw. And this is all about just unscrewing things off and taking things off the body of the saw. We just need all the metal parts off of the plastic body of the saw. And this engine just wouldn't come out, and I hadn't really figured out why it wasn't coming out, because usually I remove the spark plug ahead of time, and once I figured that out, I didn't have a deep ratchet, so I broke the spark plug and pulled it right out, and boom, it came out clean. And now we are ready for cleaning. Get out another pair of gloves, and I'm going to use isopropyl alcohol to remove all this gunk. This is just going to help with the cleaning process. I was wearing my respirator because this is a really strong smell, but it does help clean the plastic. And then after I'm done cleaning with the alcohol, I actually took the saw upstairs and I washed it with soap and water in my kitchen sink. But a lot of this gunk just needs removed. It makes the painting process so much easier. That's really gross, but now we're gonna clean up our workstation and get ready for our first big cut. So we're gonna follow this line, and Brett actually helped me figure out this cut for this part of the saw. All you gotta do is kind of follow where I'm at, and I'm using a Dremel, and my bits were just not strong enough to cut through this plastic. I switched bits quite a bit. So several tools and cuts later, we were able to finally remove it. And then off camera, I removed the plastic pull cord to get that ready for the wood pull cord. Now the raised top, we figure out the center of the holes and we just screw right on through. And make sure these holes are big enough for your bolts to pass through. And then I bolt and nut one of the bolts on so it makes it easier to hold and figure out where the placement is for the next one. And then off camera, I cut down the raised top to make it flush, so the cuff is also flush to the saw. And now just my favorite part is when I break out my nuts and bolts and I bolt this together with these awesome plates I got on Amazon. The link is in the description, and now it's starting to look like something. So once I figure out that placement, I can figure out the placement of the nuts and bolts that are going to go through the top into the handle and nut and bolt those in place. I do replace some of these. Some of these bolts are temporary, but now we're gonna actually find this part where we're gonna cut that down so the hand placement is easier to put into the saw. Off camera, I cut a 3-inch dowel into the pull cord. I also drilled a hole into that so we can place it in there. And then I start the cuts of the saw's body, I guess, so we can make a hole big enough for a hand to fit in. And then for the plate that's gonna hold the guide bar and the muffler, we have to actually cut this like ear shape out of this part of the saw so it can sit flush in there. So here's me dremeling out that part. I also drilled the holes for the guide bar for those bolts to sit in. So let's do that. And now we're ready to have our guide bar mounted. And this is the first time the saw has been fully assembled and it looks freaking awesome. I'm so excited about this. So first thing we had to do is epoxy that, and then once I disassembled the saw, I put all the nuts and bolts into this little case so I didn't lose them, and I removed the sticker, and I'm going to rough up that surface, and then I also put in the horizontal handle for your hand, and I drilled that in strategic places into the plate that's holding the guide bar. And then with some 80 grit sandpaper, I'm gonna rough up the surface of the grill, and I'm gonna rough up the surface of the chainsaw, so when I use the 5-minute epoxy, it will have something to like stick on to. So let's mix up the 5-minute epoxy, and we're gonna get to gluing. And now we are ready for paint. So at this point in the project, this is when you can actually have more creative freedom. Now, I use certain types of bolts, certain types of nuts and screws. I use different things that allowed me to put this chainsaw together. I actually just reassembled this for this part. Eventually, I'm gonna have to take an angle grinder to these to get them flush with the rest of the saw, but right now the saw is looking amazing. I love how this is coming out, but for weathering, you can do a clean look, you can do a very dirty look, an aged look. Now, I still have to paint the wood back onto this because I forgot I had to spray paint that silver, and it looks awesome. I am going to put the tape on because I do like the look of the tape being on the handle part, but right now this thing is very sturdy. I'm also going to add a lot of black here and here to look like oil and grease, and I was very happy I was able to get the horizontal handlebar, because my other saw over there actually has a vertical one. So for some reason though, this one is actually a lot tighter squeeze for my hand. I have a big hand, but I have to like turn it and then get back on, and then boom, I have the saw perfectly on my hand. This thing is still going through some modifications, but I'm loving how this project is coming out, and this is like one of my favorite saws I've ever worked on, and I love how it's coming out. It's a beauty, and I'm very excited to see the finished product in this video. So let's get back to the build. So it's time to paint the wood handle, or the wooden part of the handle. So I'm going to mix some wood colors and paint that. And I also have to paint the aluminum parts silver, and I do that off camera as well. And then I'm going to do this pass, and then I'm going to do a darker brown pass once I have everything in place to give it that wood look. And then I also use electric tape to tape up the handle so it looks like it's been repaired. I do that later in the video. I don't think I actually filmed it showing it. But I'm going to paint the muffler black. Now I could have spray painted this off of the saw, but I decided just to do it by hand and clear coat it later with gloss. And then when I use the rubber buff, I'm going to go into all the silver parts of the saw and give it that silver shine. And this all can be dulled down to your liking with black paint later when we're getting to the weathering part. Weathering is super fun. I'm just going to build up this black acrylic paint in various spots that oil would build up on a chainsaw. So even though we spent a lot of the video cleaning, we're now adding that grime back in, but it's fake grime, so it looks, you know, sporadic and aged and makes the saw look used. Now you could use black paint, brown paint, you could do washes. I just like using straight acrylic paint to do my weathering. I just like the look that it gives, especially on the red parts of the saw. And I'm just going to go around the saw and continue doing this and building up layers. For the guide bar, I want to do this like black streak effect that makes the guide bar look aged and weathered, but oiled up to a T. And I'm also going to break out the rubber buff again, just to bring back some of those high parts so it looks more shiny and metal. This will catch the light really well when you're displaying your saw or bringing your saw out for conventions and stuff. But it's time for the reveal. And this bad boy looks, it's beautiful. It's absolutely beautiful. It's one of the best things I've ever painted, and I'm so glad with how it came out. This is an absolute beauty of a prop, and I'm so excited how it came out. And there you have it, folks. That is how I made my newest Evil Dead chainsaw. And wow, this thing came out so freaking cool. I love the paint job I got on this one. I think this is my new favorite compared to my old one. They're night and day. They look so cool. Like, this all came out really awesome. I really like how I did the guide bar paint. I'm not very good at like airbrushing or anything, so I was able to get like a really cool like blacked out effect here with just simple brushing. I love how the paint came on, the weathering. Everything on this saw was really great, and I loved that I was able to find really cool tools and plates to help me make this saw a lot more detailed and more structurally sound. Like, there's not a lot of shaking. When I wear that one, there's a lot of shaking, and I think I'm going to fix that one in another video, so like this video if you want me to do that. I've been thinking about turning that into some kind of like monster hybrid or something like Backyard Zombie inspired, but this saw came out so cool, and I'm so excited to have this saw in my collection. So thank you, Brett. Thank you, Nick Mart, for helping me with this video. And I really hope that you guys, if you watched the entire video in its entirety, I really hope you enjoyed me just nerding out and talking about one of my favorite props of all time. So if you like this video, please consider liking, please consider subscribing, and hopefully we will see you loyal S-Mart shoppers in the next video brought to you by Backyard Zombie. Okay, I'm gonna say it.
Groovy.